We're group 4 from CHR 305. Our ethical choice for this presentation is abortion ever justified? And this is pretty much highlighting, is there any situation in which us as Christians can define abortion as a justifiable situation?
So to start, the definition, abortion is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. And then some of the legality that we found is that when abortion was made legal in the US, this was during Roe versus Wade in 1973. The ability for women to have an abortion under the 14th Amendment was legalized and then revisited again in the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act in 2003. This act was signed by George W. Bush. This bill prohibited the dilation and extraction of the fetus. The law was later challenged again in 2007 and debated in Supreme Court. The law had no change, allowing for late-term abortions. Now, in a fallen society, we know abortion will never be abolished, but compromises have been made. One that was found was in Kentucky, the banning of abortion of children after 15 weeks. Although this is not ideal, I think this is a good compromise between Christians and the world itself.
All right, the issue. Is abortion in any scenario ever justified? Review multiple situations and cases. We aim to determine if any scenario abortion is justified through the Christian worldview. In a scenario where the mother's life is on the line, in some cases such as placental abruption, the life of the mother is at risk. How should we view this situation? Is it still murder if it is saving the life of the mother? Is abortion justified in the case of unplanned pregnancies? If a woman is raped and becomes pregnant, is it wrong to abort the child if the mother had no choice if she wanted to bear a child or not? What if the mother does not have the money or resources to provide for the child? Is abortion justified in the case that the mother knows the child will be born with birth defects? Is the child going to have a lesser quality of life? The issue boils down to the life of the unborn baby. Is abortion killing the baby or simply removing the baby before it lives?
So going off the issues, looking at all the questions of possible times that abortions can be done, and then looking at the big question that the scenario really boils down to, looking at, is it ultimately taking the life of a baby? If we look at the Christian worldview, we can look at 3 basic beliefs to see what Christians believe on this. First is, in the Bible, we believe that all humans are made in the image of God. We can find this in Genesis 1:27. It says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God created man in his own image and likeness. Therefore, it's believed that it is against the Bible to abort children, abort babies, and to take the life of the image of God. We also see in the Bible another basic biblical belief is that killing is a sin and is also against God. This is a basic 10 commandment in Exodus 2:13, saying you shall not murder. This is a basic Christian belief, but it's also just a basic human belief as well that we find in laws throughout the world, as well as, like I said, in the Bible. Another basic Christian belief, which is why Christians are against abortion, is that God knows us before we're even born. We see this throughout Scripture. One case is in Jeremiah 1:5. The verse says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Psalms 139:16 also says, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So both of these show that even while you're in the womb, while you're still a baby, before you're born, God already knows your path. He already knows who you are, which is the basis of the Christian belief of the moment conception happens, that is a live individual human being who is known by God and on a path by God. So these three beliefs are the basis for the Christian view of abortion. Abortion is the murder of a human being who is known by God and made in his image.
Yeah, and so when deciding what other religion to look at besides Christianity, when deciding our viewpoint on abortion, we looked at postmodernism because it seems to be the complete opposite of Christianity. But in order to understand the postmodernist view of abortion, we also have to understand what modernism is. In order to understand that, we would look at art and science and literature because modernism swept the world in the 19th and 20th centuries because it relies strictly on finding truth through outlets such as science and reason. These outlets lead us to believe that there is absolute truth and that truth is universal. Now, looking at what postmodernism is a worldview that seeks to challenge the religions and beliefs of modernism. So they reject modernity, leading them to create their own truth for the individual. You might often hear a phrase that postmodernists say is that may be true for you, but it's not true for me. And so in this case, postmodernists do not have one specific stance on abortion because they believe that truth is relative. It depends on the individual's situation and experience for them to consider something to be true and valid. And so in this case, it's up to the individual.
All right, so next we're going to talk about some of our group conclusions. So Brianna, you can take it away for the personal perception.
Nice. So in my family, my aunt had gone through some stuff. If you really care to know about it, you can read it here. I'm not going to say it. And ended up having an abortion. But also at the time, her home life wasn't the greatest. So in her mind, this was the best option that she could come up with. And then as a response to how this affected our group's influence, it really didn't affect it. I mean, we still have concluded that we don't agree with abortion.
All right. Social influences, like how will your social network / group perceive this scenario? Coming from Anderson, we believe that the people that we surround ourselves will almost unanimously agree with our approach on this, especially considering like the Christian worldview that goes throughout this campus. We believe that everyone will be agreeing with us on our standpoint. How will their view of the scenario influence your view and approach? For those who share the same view as us, we will grow and strengthen our belief together. For those who do not believe the same as us, we will listen to what they have to say, but we will stand strong in our standpoint. When opposition comes, we must stay strong in our worldview and decisions from it.
Another thing that affected our group's conclusion is our own worldview and the faith influences throughout our life. Growing up as Christians and attending a Christian university has deeply affected our beliefs, our foundational beliefs based on the Bible. And so that affected our decision to say that abortion is wrong, except in extreme cases. One of the reasons that we believe this is because going back to what we talked about earlier, is that we're created in the image of God, and because of that, we're not supposed to kill that baby because God has specially created that person. They're unique and special in His image. And one thing we took away from the book that we read earlier in the semester, Albert Walters says, "You cannot maintain your integrity for long if you make no effort to resolve the conflict." And that relates to the fact that if we don't stand strong in our own beliefs and our worldview, we will eventually fall over and fall into the world and their decisions that they make. So that can lead to a lot of conflict, but we just have to remember to stand strong in what we believe.
Looking at some of the theoretical approach to the ethical decision making, the biggest argument that we seemed to use while making our decision was the deontological argument. That focuses on rules, laws, and duties. So first off is just the basic moral rule that nearly all would agree, Christian worldview or not, is it's immoral to take the life of another person. That seems to be just a basic human rule, something you understand. Well, even on the context of non-Christians who are running governments, they make the rules that even then it's an immoral understood rule. Looking at duty for the deontological argument, we see that a duty of humans is to respect the lives of all others. According to the Interaction Council, which is a international council that's made up of several past world leaders who try to unite countries based off of respect to each other. Even this council says every person has a responsibility to behave with integrity, honesty, and fairness. With looking at this quote from something that has a worldwide stance that's not coming off of a Christian worldview, even they say that integrity, honesty, and fairness is a duty of all humans. When looking at the word fairness, every child should have a fair chance after they have been formed. There's conception, there's a live baby from the moment they begin, and every child deserves a fair chance. And even outside of a Christian worldview, it is a duty of humans to give fairness, and that is what should be given to these children. As Christians, going along with the duty, we understand that it is a duty for all Christians to be Christ-like or Christian. So we need to have a relationship with God, living our life as Christ also would. And that's going to be standing against the killing of innocent children and giving a fair chance of life to all, and to further be spreading the gospel. With all those conclusions being said, our final group conclusion came to the decision that abortion is never justifiable, except for in any extreme cases that the life of a mother is on the line and the baby can also not be saved. From our research, we found that within the first 24 to 25 weeks, that's when the baby is most dependent on the mother in its forming stages. And babies actually have a 40 to 70% chance survival rate after being born once they get to that 24 to 25 week mark. So what we concluded is if a mother has a serious condition, such as a placental abruption, or any other serious conditions, which can lead to the mother's life being taken within just a few hours or days. If this happens within the first 24 to 25 weeks of the pregnancy, then we've decided that's the only justifiable time for an abortion to take place, because at that moment in time, there's no choice to be made, because at that point, the baby doesn't have a chance to survive outside of the mother, which means that if you were essentially to be born early, then a child would pass away, and as well as if you don't, then the mother would pass away, leading to the child to pass away. So that's the only justifiable time that an abortion can happen, is if there's no other choice to save the life. And that if you save the life of the mother, then she'll live, but if you don't, then actually both would die. So we don't label this actually as an abortion, but this would be labeled as a tragedy, because there'd be no other choice, because it would either be both die or the one, which is more of a tragedy, not an abortion. In any serious condition after 24 to 25 weeks, our group, after research, advised for a forced premature being the forced premature birth of a child. This can be done by doctors inducing the pregnancy to happen. And if a mother who does have a serious condition is after that 24-week mark, she can have that baby prematurely, and that baby will have a 40 to 70% chance of survival, which will take away the abortion. The mother won't have to have an abortion, and the mother's life can also survive, which would give both of them the chance to live if it's after that 24-week mark. Any other time, if it's from bad home life, if it's from rape, if it's from just making the wrong decisions, we don't believe that abortion is ever justifiable. We believe that there are systems set up, help that can be done. There's actually child abandonment acts in the state of South Carolina that up to 60 days after a baby is born, a parent can legally give that baby up to a hospital or local like law stations, and those are better options. So our group has just concluded that abortion is only justifiable in extreme cases before that 24-week mark. Of course, this did have a lot of research going into it. So we have several references that are very interesting to look at, and we appreciate you watching our presentation today.